My parents pulled me aside 3 days before my sister's wedding and said, "If you really love Lauren, you'll disappear before she walks down the aisle." They weren't joking, they had a plane ticket ready, a hotel booked in another state, and an ultimatum that would shatter our family forever. But what could I have possibly done to make my own parents choose my sister's happiness over my existence? I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from, and if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. I'm Sophia Williams, and I need to tell you about the worst week of my life, not because of what I did, but because of what I refused to do. It started on a Tuesday afternoon in late September. I had just driven 6 hours from Portland back to my hometown of Riverside, Connecticut, where my younger sister Lauren was getting married that Saturday. The wedding was going to be this massive event, 200 guests, a waterfront venue, the works. Lauren had been planning it for over a year, and honestly, I was excited for her. She and her fiancé Derek had been together since college, and they seemed genuinely happy. I pulled into my parents' driveway around 3 in the afternoon. The house looked exactly the same, as it always had, a 2-story colonial with blue shutters and Mom's obsessively maintained garden out front. I grabbed my suitcase from the trunk and headed inside, expecting the usual warm welcome. Instead, I found my parents sitting at the kitchen table with expressions that made my stomach drop. "Sophia," my dad said, standing up slowly. His name is Richard Williams, and he's usually the calm, measured one in our family. But that afternoon, he looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. "We need to talk." My mom, Patricia, didn't even look at me. She just stared down at her coffee mug, her hands wrapped around it like she was trying to warm herself despite the fact that it was 70 degrees outside. "Okay," I said, setting my suitcase down by the door. "What's going on? Is Lauren all right?" "Lauren's fine," Dad said, but the way he said it made it clear that someone definitely wasn't fine. "Sit down." I sat across from them, and that's when I noticed the manila envelope on the table between us. Dad pushed it toward me with 2 fingers, like it was something contaminated. "What is this?" I asked. "Open it," Mom said quietly. Those were the first words she'd spoken to me, and her voice sounded hollow. I opened the envelope. Inside was a printed airline ticket one way from Bradley International to San Francisco, departing Thursday morning. There was also a hotel confirmation for 4 nights and a check for $1,500 made out to me. "I don't understand," I said, looking up at them. "Why would I need a plane ticket?" "The wedding is Saturday." My dad cleared his throat. "Your mother and I have discussed this at length, and we've decided it would be best for everyone, especially for Lauren, if you weren't here for the wedding." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" "Derek's family is very traditional," Mom finally said, still not meeting my eyes. "Very conservative. And Lauren has worked so hard for this wedding to be perfect." "I still don't understand what that has to do with me leaving," I said, even though somewhere deep down, I was starting to piece it together. Dad folded his hands on the table. "Sophia, we love you. You know that. But your lifestyle choices, they're going to cause problems. Derek's parents, especially his mother Constance, she's very involved in their church community. Very vocal about certain issues. And there it was. I'm gay. I came out to my family 4 years ago when I was 23. My parents had said all the right things at the time, that they loved me no matter what, that nothing would change between us. Lauren had hugged me and told me she was proud of me for being honest. Apparently, all of that had an expiration date. "So let me get this straight," I said, and I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. "You want me to just disappear for Lauren's wedding because Derek's mom is a homophobe?" "Don't use that word," Mom snapped, finally looking at me. "Constance is a good woman with strong values. She's not hateful. She clearly has a problem with who I am. She doesn't know who you are," Dad said. "Lauren hasn't told Derek's family about your situation. And with Derek's cousin Emma being one of the bridesmaids and his uncle being the officiant, we just think it would be easier if there weren't any complications." "Complications," I repeated. "That's what I am now? A complication?" "You're being dramatic," Mom said. "We're asking you to do this for your sister, for one weekend. Lauren has dreamed about this day her entire life, and we won't let anything ruin it for her. I looked at the plane ticket again, at the hotel confirmation, at the check. They'd planned this. They'd actually sat down, discussed it, and decided that I was enough of a problem that they needed to pay me to leave town. Does Lauren know about this? I asked. My parents exchanged a glance. Lauren agrees that it might be best, Dad said carefully. So my own sister wants me gone too. She wants her wedding day to be perfect, Mom said. She doesn't want drama or tension. Constance has already made some comments about wanting to make sure the wedding party represents good Christian values, and if she finds out that Lauren's sister is gay, I finished for her. The word is gay, Mom. I'm gay. I've been gay. I'll always be gay. And if Lauren is so ashamed of that she'd rather I not exist for her wedding, then maybe she's not the person I thought she was. Don't make this about Lauren, Dad said firmly. This is about family, about sacrifice. Sometimes we have to put aside our own feelings for the people we love. That's rich, I said, standing up, because it seems like the only person being asked to sacrifice anything here is me. I grabbed the envelope and threw it back across the table. I'm not going anywhere. I'm Lauren's sister. I'm part of this family, and I have every right to be at her wedding. Sophia, Mom started. No, I said. I drove 6 hours to be here. I took time off work. I bought a dress. I've been looking forward to this. And you want me to just vanish because Derek's family might be uncomfortable? What about my comfort? What about my feelings? This isn't about you, Mom said, her voice rising. For once, could you think about someone other than yourself? That stung more than anything else she could have said. Not about me? Mom, you're literally trying to erase me from my own sister's life because of who I love. We're not erasing you, Dad said, trying to keep his voice calm. We're asking you to make a sacrifice, a temporary one. You can come back Sunday, after the wedding, after Derek's family goes home. You can see Lauren then, celebrate with her then. And what about the rehearsal dinner? The ceremony? Walking down the aisle as her sister? All the moments that actually matter? There will be other moments, Mom said. No, I said, shaking my head. There won't be. She only gets married once. And you're asking me to miss it because you care more about what some bigoted strangers think than you do about your own daughter. That's not fair, Dad said. None of this is fair, I shot back. But I'm not leaving. I don't care what Derek's mother thinks. I don't care if it makes things awkward. I'm going to that wedding, and I'm going to be there for my sister, even if she apparently doesn't want me there. I grabbed my suitcase and headed for the stairs. I'll stay in my old room, and on Saturday, I'll be at that venue in my dress with a smile on my face. And if Constance has a problem with it, that's between her and Lauren. Sophia Williams, if you do this, there will be consequences, Mom said, her voice cold. I turned back to look at her. Consequences? What are you going to do? Disown me? Because it kind of seems like you already have. I didn't wait for an answer. I went upstairs to my childhood bedroom, closed the door, and sat on my old bed, staring at the posters I'd hung when I was 16, wondering how everything had fallen apart so quickly. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Lauren. Mom told me you said no. Please, Soph. Please just do this for me. I'm begging you. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I turned off my phone and lay back on my bed, trying not to cry, but the tears came anyway. I woke up Wednesday morning to the sound of voices downstairs, angry voices. I checked my phone 8:47 a.m., and I had 12 missed calls, 7 from Lauren, 3 from my mom, and 2 from a number I didn't recognize. I dragged myself out of bed and crept to the top of the stairs, listening. Cannot believe you're supporting this. That was my Aunt Melissa, my mom's younger sister. Patricia, she's your daughter. Both of them are my daughters, Mom replied sharply. Which is exactly why this is so difficult. Difficult? You're asking one child to disappear so the other one can have a pretty wedding. How is that difficult? It's cruel. You don't understand the situation, Dad interjected. The Montgomery family, Derek's family, they're very well connected. Derek's father owns 3 car dealerships across the state. They're prominent in their community. So what? Aunt Melissa shot back. Since when do we care about impressing rich people? Since our daughter is marrying into that family? Mom said. Since Lauren's entire future is tied to these people. Do you know what it would do to her marriage if this started on the wrong foot? If Constance Montgomery decided Lauren wasn't good enough for her precious son? I heard Aunt Melissa laugh, but it wasn't a happy sound. So, you're sacrificing one daughter's dignity to secure the other daughter's social standing. That's what this is about. It's about protecting Lauren, Dad said. From what? From having a sister who loves her? The silence that followed was deafening. Then I heard footsteps, and Aunt Melissa appeared at the bottom of the stairs. She looked up and saw me standing there. Sophia, she said, her expression softening. How long have you been up there? Long enough, I said, coming down the stairs. Mom and Dad appeared in the hallway. Mom's face went pale when she saw me, but Dad just looked tired. I'm taking you to breakfast, Aunt Melissa announced, grabbing her purse from the side table. Sophia, get dressed. We're leaving. Melissa, Mom started. No, Patricia. I'm not watching you do this to her. Come on, Sophia. 20 minutes later, we were sitting in a booth at Jenny's Diner on Main Street, the same place where Aunt Melissa used to take me and Lauren for pancakes when we were kids. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'm sorry you had to hear that, Aunt Melissa said, after the waitress took our orders. It's fine. At least now I know exactly how everyone feels. Your parents are wrong, Sophia. Completely, absolutely wrong. She reached across the table and took my hand. I want you to know that, whatever happens this week, you did nothing wrong. Then why does it feel like I did? Because they're making you feel that way. That's what manipulation looks like. She squeezed my hand. Have you talked to Lauren directly? Face to face? I shook my head. Just the text last night. I haven't responded. You need to talk to her, not your parents, not through messages. You two need to sit down and have an actual conversation about this. What if she really does want me gone? I asked, voicing the fear that had kept me up most of the night. What if Mom and Dad aren't making her do this? What if she actually agrees with them? Then you'll know where you stand, Aunt, Melissa said gently. And as much as that will hurt, at least you'll have the truth. Our food arrived, but I couldn't eat. My stomach was twisted in knots. I called her, Aunt Melissa said, cutting into her omelet. Last night, after your mom told me what was happening, I told Lauren she was breaking your heart. What did she say? She cried. Said she didn't want to hurt you, but that she didn't know what else to do. Said Constance had already made comments about wanting to make sure the wedding was traditional and family appropriate, and that Derek was stressed about keeping his mother happy. So, she's choosing Derek's comfort over our relationship. She's scared, Aunt Melissa corrected. She's 25 years old, about to marry into a family that she's trying desperately to impress, and your parents have convinced her that your presence is somehow a threat to that. But Sophia, fear doesn't excuse what she's doing. It explains it, but it doesn't make it right. My phone buzzed. Another text from Lauren. Can we please talk? I'm at the bridal shop for my final fitting at 11. Can you meet me there? Just us? I showed Aunt Melissa the message. Go, she said immediately. Talk to your sister. Tell her how you feel. And Sophia? Don't let her dodge the real issue. Make her say it out loud. Make her admit what she's actually asking you to do and why. At 10:55, I pulled into the parking lot of Bella's bridal boutique. Through the window, I could see Lauren standing on a platform in her wedding dress, surrounded by mirrors. Even from outside, I could see how beautiful she looked. The bell chimed as I walked in. Lauren turned, and our eyes met. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she stepped down carefully and walked toward me. Soph, she said, and her voice cracked. Nice dress, I said, because I didn't know what else to say. Can we go somewhere private? She glanced at the boutique owner, who was pretending not to listen. The park. Across the street. You're going to walk around in your wedding dress? I don't care. She grabbed my hand. Please. We need to talk. 5 minutes later, we were sitting on a park bench, Lauren in her white ball gown and me in jeans and a sweater, looking like the world's saddest fairy tale. I'm not leaving, I said before she could start. I need you to hear that. I'm not taking that plane ticket. I'm not hiding in San Francisco while you get married. I'm your sister, and I love you, and I'm going to be there. Lauren's eyes filled with tears. I know. And that's what I told Derek last night. I blinked. What? I told him that I couldn't ask you to leave, that it wasn't fair, and that if his mother had a problem with you being there, then that was something we'd have to deal with as a family. Hope flickered in my chest. So you want me there? Of course I want you there, she said, and now the tears were falling. Soph, you're my sister. You're one of the most important people in my life. How could I not want you at my wedding? Then why did you text me asking me to leave? She looked down at her hands, twisting the engagement ring on her finger. Because Mom called me crying. She said you were being selfish, that you were going to ruin everything, that Derek's family would think we were all terrible people. She said that if Constance found out about you, she might convince Derek to call off the wedding. And you believed her? I panicked, Lauren admitted. I've been so stressed about this wedding, about everything being perfect, about making a good impression on the Montgomerys. They're so different from our family, Soph. They have money, they have status, they have all these expectations, and I've been trying so hard to fit into their world. But that's their world, not yours, I said. You're marrying Derek, not his mother. I know. That's what Derek said too. She wiped her eyes. After you didn't respond to my text, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the times you've been there for me. When I was bullied in middle school, you stood up to those girls. When I failed my driver's test 3 times, you drove me around until I was ready to try again. When I had my appendix out, you slept in the hospital room with me, Lauren, and I was asking you to miss my wedding because I was afraid of what some woman I barely know might think of you. Of us. She turned to face me fully. I talked to Derek at midnight. Woke him up, actually. Told him everything about Mom and Dad wanting you to leave. About the plane ticket. All of it. And you know what he said? I shook my head. He said that if his mother can't accept my family, all of my family, then maybe we need to reconsider whether this wedding should happen at all. I stared at her. He said that? He was furious. Not at me, at his mother. He said he's tired of trying to live up to her impossible standards and that he's marrying me, not her. He called her this morning and told her that you were going to be at the wedding and that if she had a problem with it, she could stay home. What did she say? Lauren smiled slightly. She didn't take it well. There was a lot of yelling. But Derek held firm. He told her that this was his wedding, his choice, and his future. And then he told her that if she ever made you feel unwelcome in our family, she'd be seeing a lot less of him. I felt tears building in my own eyes now. Really? Really? Lauren grabbed both my hands. Soph, I'm so sorry. I should have stood up for you from the beginning. I should have told Mom and Dad that their plan was insane. I should have fought for you instead of making you fight for yourself. You're standing up for me now, I said. That's what matters. Mom and Dad are still going to push, she warned. They called Derek this morning too, trying to convince him that he was making a mistake. They think he's going to regret this. Are they still planning to pay for the wedding? I asked. Lauren's jaw tightened. Derek told them that if they couldn't accept having you there, they could keep their money. His parents will cover whatever needs to be covered. Lauren, that's your wedding fund. I don't care, she said fiercely. You're more important than some fancy ice sculpture or designer centerpieces. You're my sister. And I'm not getting married without you there. I pulled her into a hug, careful not to crush her dress. I love you, I said. I love you too, she whispered back. And I'm sorry it took me this long to show it. When we pulled apart, I saw a woman standing near the boutique entrance, watching us. She was wearing a cream-colored suit and had perfectly styled blonde hair. Is that? I started. Constance Montgomery, Lauren confirmed. She must have seen us come over here. We watched as she climbed into a black Mercedes and drove away without a word. Well, I said. I guess she knows now. I guess she does, Lauren agreed. Come on, I need to get out of this dress, and then we need to talk to Mom and Dad together. Because this ends now. As we walked back to the boutique, Lauren linked her arm through mine. For the first time since I'd arrived home, I felt like maybe everything was going to be okay. I was wrong. The confrontation at my parents' house that afternoon was worse than I'd imagined. Lauren and I walked in together, united front, ready to set boundaries. What we found was a war room. Mom and Dad were sitting in the living room with 3 other people: Derek's parents, Constance and Harold Montgomery, and someone I didn't recognize, a stern-looking woman in her 60s wearing a cross necklace. "What is this?" Lauren asked, stopping in the doorway. "An intervention," Constance said coldly, standing up. She was even more intimidating in person than she'd been from across the park. "Sit down, Lauren. We need to discuss your future." "My future is with Derek," Lauren said, "but I could hear the tremor in her voice. "And he already told you that Sophia is welcome at our wedding." "Derek is confused," Constance replied. "He's been influenced by," she glanced at me with barely concealed disgust, "certain modern ideologies that go against our family's values. But Harold and I have been married for 32 years, and we know what it takes to build a lasting marriage: compromise, sacrifice, and respect for tradition." Harold Montgomery stood as well. He was tall, silver-haired, and looked like someone who was used to getting his way. "Lauren, you seem like a sweet girl, but you need to understand something. Our family has a reputation in this community. We have standards, and we will not have our name associated with degeneracy." "Excuse me?" I said, stepping forward. "Sophia, don't," Dad warned. "No, I want to hear this," I said, looking directly at Harold. "You think I'm degenerate because I'm gay?" "I think you've made choices that are incompatible with Christian values," the unknown woman interjected. "I'm Pastor Linda Hutchins from Riverside Community Church. Your parents asked me to come here today to offer guidance." "Guidance," I repeated. "Let me guess, conversion therapy?" Pastor Hutchins smiled thinly. "We prefer to call it redemptive counseling. There are programs that have helped many young people overcome their same-sex attractions and—" "Get out," Lauren said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. "I said get out," she repeated, louder this time. "All of you. This is insane." "Lauren, honey," Mom started. "No," Lauren's voice cracked. "This is my wedding, mine and Derek's, and you've turned it into some kind of tribunal to judge my sister." "How dare you? We're trying to help you," Constance said, her voice dripping with condescension. "You're young. You don't understand the implications of—" "I understand that you're bigots," Lauren shot back. "I understand that you care more about what your church friends think than about actual human beings. And I understand that if this is what being part of the Montgomery family means, then maybe I don't want to be part of it." The room went silent. Harold's face turned red. "Young lady, you will not speak to my wife that way." "Then she shouldn't speak about my sister that way," Lauren fired back. "Lauren, think about what you're saying," Dad said, standing up. "Think about your future. Derek's family can provide so much for you: stability, security, connections. I don't want their connections if it means betraying Sophia." "You're being emotional," Mom said. "Once you calm down—" "I am calm," Lauren said, and she was. Her hands weren't shaking anymore. Her voice was steady. "I've never been more clear-headed in my life. Sophia is my sister. She's been there for me through everything. And if you all can't see how amazing she is, how kind and loyal and brave she is, then that's your loss, not mine." "If you go through with this," Constance said icily, "if you insist on having her at the wedding, then you need to know there will be consequences. My family, Derek's uncles, his cousins, our friends, many of them share our values." "They won't come. You'll have empty seats," whispers behind your back. "Is that what you want for your special day?" "What I want," Lauren said, "is to marry the man I love, surrounded by people who actually love me back. If your family doesn't fit that description, then don't come. We'll celebrate without you." Constance's expression hardened. "Derek will hear about this." "Derek already knows," a voice said from behind us. We all turned. Derek was standing in the doorway, still in his work clothes, navy suit, loosened tie. He must have come straight from his office. "Mom, Dad, I got your messages," he said, walking into the room. 7 missed calls. I figured something was wrong. "Derek, thank God," Constance said, rushing toward him. Talk some sense into your fiancé. She's being completely unreasonable. No, she's not, Derek said, gently moving past his mother to stand next to Lauren. He took her hand. She's being exactly what I fell in love with, strong, principled, and loyal. Derek, this is a mistake, Harold said. This girl and her lifestyle will bring nothing but trouble to our family. Sophia isn't trouble, Derek said firmly. She's Lauren's sister, and that makes her family. My family. Our family. You can't be serious, Constance said, her voice rising. After everything we've given you? The education? The opportunities? The business connections? You're going to throw all of that away for the woman I love? Yes. Derek looked at his parents with something like sadness. I thought you'd understand that. I thought family meant more to you than appearances. Family is exactly what this is about, Harold said. Protecting our family's name, our reputation. You can't just, I can, and I am, Derek interrupted. Lauren and I are getting married on Saturday. Sophia will be there as her sister and my future sister-in-law. If you can't accept that, then don't come. It's that simple. Constance looked like she'd been slapped. You would choose them over us? I'm not choosing anyone over anyone, Derek said. I'm choosing love over prejudice. I'm choosing to build a family based on acceptance, not judgment. And I'm choosing to marry a woman who stands by her principles instead of bending to other people's bigotry. Derek Montgomery, if you go through with this, Harold started. Then what, Dad? You'll cut me off? Disown me? Derek's voice was calm but firm. I have my own career, my own savings, and more importantly, I have my integrity. I won't start my marriage by asking my wife to reject her own sister. Pastor Hutchins cleared her throat. Perhaps we should all take a moment to pray. No, Derek said. With all due respect, Pastor, I don't need prayer right now. I need my parents to understand that homophobia isn't a family value I'm interested in passing down. How dare you call us homophobic? Constance hissed. What else would you call asking someone to hide their identity or stay away because of who they love? Derek countered. The silence that followed was suffocating. Finally, Harold spoke. If this is your decision, Derek, then you're making it without our support, financial or otherwise. I understand, Derek said. We won't be coming to the wedding, Constance added, grabbing her purse. And neither will anyone from our side of the family. I'll make sure of it. That's your choice, Lauren said quietly. Constance turned to my parents. I hope you're happy with how this turned out. Your daughter's wedding will be a joke. A scandal. Our daughter's wedding will be filled with people who actually care about her, I said, speaking for the first time since Derek arrived. Quality over quantity. Constance glared at me with pure hatred. You've destroyed this family. No, Derek said. You did that all on your own. The Montgomerys and Pastor Hutchins left in a storm of slammed doors and muttered curses. When they were gone, Lauren collapsed onto the couch, and Derek sat beside her, pulling her close. I looked at my parents, who had remained silent through the entire exchange. Well? I said. Anything you want to add? Mom's face was pale. Lauren, you realize what you've just done? Derek's family has connections throughout the state. This could affect his career, his opportunities. I don't care, Lauren said, her voice muffled against Derek's shoulder. You should care, Dad said. This is your future you're gambling with. This is my future, Lauren said, lifting her head. A future where I don't have to choose between my husband and my sister. A future where I don't have to pretend part of my family doesn't exist. You're being naive, Mom said. Maybe, Lauren agreed. But I'd rather be naive and happy than cynical and ashamed of who I love. Derek kissed the top of her head. We should go. We have a lot of phone calls to make. You're really going through with this? Dad asked. Without the Montgomerys? Without half your guest list? Without anyone who thinks love is conditional, Derek said, standing and helping Lauren up. Come on, babe. Let's go plan our wedding. Lauren looked at me. You're still coming dress shopping with me tomorrow, right? I need help picking out bridesmaid jewelry. Wouldn't miss it, I said, my throat tight. She hugged me quickly, then took Derek's hand and walked out. I stood there in the living room with my parents, the silence stretching between us like a chasm. "You should be happy," I finally said. "This is what you wanted, right? Drama. Consequences. Proof that having a gay daughter ruins everything." "That's not what we wanted," Mom said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Then what did you want?" "Because from where I'm standing, you got exactly what you orchestrated." "We wanted to protect Lauren," Dad said. "From what? From having a sister who loves her?" I shook my head. "You didn't protect her. You almost cost her everything. Derek. Her integrity. Her self-respect. Me." "Sophia," Mom started. "I'm going out," I said, grabbing my jacket. "I'll be back later." "Maybe?" I walked out of that house and kept walking until I couldn't see it anymore. My phone rang. "Aunt Melissa." "I heard," she said when I answered. "Derek called me." "Are you okay?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Where are you?" "Walking. Just walking. Come to my house. I'm making dinner. You can stay here tonight if you want, or for the rest of the week." "Thanks, Aunt Mel." "Sophia, you did good today. You stood your ground, and Lauren stood with you." "That's not nothing." I ended the call and looked up at the darkening sky. The wedding was in 3 days, and I had no idea if my parents would even be there. Thursday morning started with a phone call that changed everything. I was at Aunt Melissa's house, eating toast and trying not to think about the rehearsal dinner scheduled for that evening, when Lauren called. "Turn on Channel 5, she said without preamble. "Now." I grabbed the remote and switched on the small TV in Aunt Melissa's kitchen. A morning news segment was playing, and my stomach dropped when I saw the headline scrolling across the bottom. "Local business owner's son defies family values in wedding controversy." The anchor, a woman with impossibly white teeth, smiled at the camera. In what's being called a generational divide over modern relationships, Derek Montgomery, son of prominent businessman Harold Montgomery, is moving forward with his wedding this weekend, despite his family's objections. Sources say the controversy centers around the bride's sister, who is openly gay. The Montgomery family, known for their conservative values and involvement with Riverside Community Church, has reportedly withdrawn all support for the wedding. "Are you kidding me?" I said out loud. The segment continued with footage of Harold Montgomery standing outside one of his dealerships. "My family has always stood for traditional Christian values," he told the reporter. "Sometimes love means saying no. Sometimes it means drawing a line to protect the sanctity of marriage and family." Then Constance appeared on screen, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. We raised Derek to know right from wrong, to see him throw away everything we taught him for the sake of political correctness. It breaks my heart. "They're playing the victims," Aunt Melissa said, appearing beside me. Unbelievable. My phone started buzzing, text after text after text. From my college roommate. "Is this about you?" From a former coworker. "Holy shit, are you famous now?" From numbers I didn't recognize. "You should be ashamed of yourself." "How did this get on the news?" I asked Lauren, who was still on the line. "Constance," she said bitterly. "She called the local station yesterday. Apparently. She knows the news director from church. They interviewed her last night after we left." "What are you going to do?" Derek's handling it. "He's calling the station right now to request equal time." "But Sophia, it's getting ugly." His mother tagged the story on Facebook, and it's being shared everywhere. People are leaving reviews on Harold's dealership pages, both supporting and attacking them. Someone created a hashtag, "This is spiraling." I felt sick. "I'm so sorry, Lauren." "Don't you dare apologize," she said fiercely. "This isn't your fault. This is Constance's last-ditch effort to humiliate us into submission. But it's not going to work." After I hung up, I made the mistake of looking at social media. The hashtag number Riverside Wedding was trending locally. The comments were about a war zone. "Good for the Montgomerys for standing up for their beliefs. Imagine being so bigoted you'd abandon your own son. This is what's wrong with America today, families torn apart by the gay agenda. Love is love." The Montgomerys should be ashamed. Someone had found my personal Instagram account. My last 3 posts had hundreds of comments, most of them from strangers, some supportive, many vicious. "You're destroying that family. Your parents should have sent you away." People like you are why traditional marriage is under attack. I turned off my phone and put my head in my hands. They made you the villain, Aunt Melissa said softly. Maybe I am, I said. Maybe if I had just taken that plane ticket. Stop, she said sharply. Don't let them rewrite history. You didn't ask for any of this. You just wanted to attend your sister's wedding. But guilt gnawed at me anyway. At noon, Derek showed up at Aunt Melissa's house. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his usually neat hair disheveled. I'm so sorry, he said as soon as I opened the door. I never imagined my mother would do something like this. It's not your fault, I said automatically. Yes, it is. She's my mother, and I should have seen this coming. He ran a hand through his hair. The news station gave us 10 minutes for a rebuttal tonight at 6. Lauren and I are going to make a statement. Are you sure that's a good idea? Aunt Melissa asked. The more you engage with this, the bigger it becomes. If we don't respond, then my mother's narrative becomes the truth, Derek said. Everyone will think we're these rebellious kids attacking our family's values. I need people to understand that this isn't about politics or agendas. It's about basic human decency. What are you going to say? I asked. The truth. He pulled out his phone and showed me a document. I wrote this last night. Lauren helped. We want you to read it first. I took the phone. The statement was simple but powerful. My name is Derek Montgomery, and on Saturday, I'm marrying the love of my life, Lauren Williams. My parents have chosen not to attend because Lauren's sister, Sophia, is gay. They believe that her presence at our wedding somehow threatens their values. I fundamentally disagree. Sophia has shown me what real family looks like, people who stand by each other even when it's hard, even when it costs them something. My parents' rejection of Sophia isn't protecting family values. It's destroying them. Lauren and I are moving forward with our wedding, surrounded by people who understand that love in all its forms should be celebrated, not condemned. To anyone struggling with family acceptance, you deserve to be loved for who you are, not who others want you to be. My vision blurred. Derek, is it okay? He asked. Lauren wanted to make sure you were comfortable with us going public. More than okay? I managed. Thank you. You're family now, he said simply. And I protect my family. That evening, Aunt Melissa, Lauren, Derek, and I gathered in Aunt Melissa's living room to watch the news segment. My parents hadn't called, hadn't texted. The silence from them was somehow worse than the media circus. At 6:07, Derek and Lauren appeared on screen, sitting together on a couch in the studio. Lauren looked beautiful and nervous. Derek looked determined. The anchor asked them to respond to Constance's claims that they were rejecting family values. Derek delivered the statement almost word for word from what he'd written, his hand holding Lauren's tightly the entire time. When he finished, the anchor turned to Lauren. And what would you say to people who agree with Derek's parents, who believes that traditional marriage is under attack? Lauren took a breath. I'd say that what's under attack is compassion. My sister hasn't hurt anyone. She hasn't demanded anything except to be treated like a human being. If your traditional values require you to ostracize family members for being gay, then maybe those aren't values worth keeping. Strong words, the anchor said. Your parents haven't made a public statement. Do they support your decision? The camera zoomed in on Lauren's face, and I saw the pain there before she answered. My parents are struggling with this, she said carefully. They're caught between what they think is right and what they feel is right. I hope they choose love. But either way, Derek and I are moving forward. The segment ended. My phone immediately lit up with notifications, but I ignored them. You two were perfect, Aunt Melissa said, hugging them both. The rehearsal dinner starts in an hour, Lauren said, looking at me. Are you still coming? Of course. It's going to be small. Half the people canceled after the news broke. But everyone who's coming is someone who actually loves us. The rehearsal dinner was held at a small Italian restaurant downtown. Instead of the 80 people originally invited, 23 showed up. But those 23 people filled the room with warmth and laughter. Derek's best friend gave a toast about standing up for what you believe in. Lauren's college roommate talked about the importance of chosen family. Aunt Melissa made everyone cry with a speech about courage. My parents' empty seats at the head table were obvious to everyone, but no one mentioned them. After dinner, Lauren pulled me aside onto the restaurant's patio. "Tomorrow's the last day before the wedding," she said. "Everything's ready, the flowers, the cake, the photographer. Everyone who's coming has confirmed. It's really happening." "Cold feet?" I asked. "Not even a little." She smiled. "I'm marrying my best friend, someone who stood up to his entire family for me, for us. How many people can say that? He's a good guy. The best." She paused. "I need to ask you something. Will you walk me down the aisle?" I stared at her. "What?" "Dad was supposed to do it. But if he's not there, I want you. You're the one who's always been there for me." "It should be you." "Lauren, if Dad shows up, then he can sit in the audience and watch my sister give me away," she said firmly. "This is my decision, Soph. Will you do it?" I pulled her into a hug. "Yes. Of course, yes." We stood there on that patio, holding each other, and I realized something. This wedding had cost us both so much: relationships, peace, certainty about the future. But it had also given us something invaluable: clarity about who we were and what we stood for. "One more day," Lauren whispered. "And then I become Mrs. Lauren Montgomery Williams." "Hyphenated name?" I asked, pulling back. She grinned. Derek insisted. Said he was joining our family as much as I was joining his. When we went back inside, Derek was deep in conversation with his best friend, Cameron. But he looked up when Lauren entered, and his whole face lit up. That's when I knew everything was going to be okay. Not because the situation was resolved. Not because my parents had changed their minds or because Constance had apologized, but because Lauren had found someone who loved her enough to choose her over everything else. And isn't that what family is supposed to be? The rehearsal dinner wound down around 10. As people started leaving, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Meet me at Riverside Park tomorrow at noon. Come alone." "Mom?" I showed Lauren the message. "Are you going?" she asked. I looked at the text for a long moment, then typed back, "I'll be there." Whatever my mother wanted to say, it was time to hear it. For better or worse, tomorrow would bring answers. Friday arrived with heavy gray clouds and the smell of rain in the air. I got to Riverside Park at 11:55, 5 minutes early. The park was nearly empty, just a jogger on the trail and an elderly man feeding ducks by the pond. I chose a bench near the old oak tree where Lauren and I used to play as kids. Mom arrived exactly at noon, carrying 2 coffee cups from the cafe on Main Street. She looked older than I remembered, lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. "I got you a vanilla latte," she said, handing me one of the cups. "That's still your order, right?" "Yeah," I said, surprised she remembered. "Thanks." She sat down beside me, but not too close. There was at least a foot of space between us. We sat in silence for a minute, both staring out at the pond. "I've been watching the news coverage," Mom finally said, "reading the comments online. It's gotten out of hand." "That wasn't my fault," I said defensively. "I know." She took a sip of her coffee. "It was Constance's. She weaponized this whole situation, turned it into a spectacle. Your father and I never wanted that." "What did you want?" I asked, turning to face her. "Because from where I'm sitting, you wanted me to disappear." Mom flinched. "We wanted to protect Lauren from conflict, from having to choose between her family and her in-laws. But you made her choose anyway. You just wanted her to choose you." "Yes," Mom admitted, and the honesty surprised me. "Yes, I did. Is that so terrible? Wanting my daughter to have a smooth, happy wedding day without controversy? It is when the controversy is just me existing." Mom was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something I never expected. "I went to see Father Thomas yesterday, at Street Catherine's." I blinked. "The priest from our old church?" I needed to talk to someone who knew our family, who could give me perspective. She wrapped both hands around her coffee cup. "I told him everything about you coming out, about the wedding, about asking you to leave. I thought he'd agree with me. Tell me we were doing the right thing by trying to protect traditional values. And he asked me if I'd ever actually read the part of the Bible about the prodigal son." Mom's voice wavered. "Not just read it, but understand it. The father in that story doesn't demand his son change before welcoming him home. He runs to meet him. He celebrates his return. He loves him exactly as he is." I felt my throat tighten. Mom. Then Father Thomas asked me something that's been haunting me ever since. She finally looked at me, and her eyes were red. He said, Patricia, when you stand before God someday, and he asks you why you rejected one of his children, what will you say? That you were protecting another one of his children? That you were following someone else's interpretation of his word? Or will you admit that you chose fear over love? A tear rolled down her cheek. I don't know when I became so afraid, she continued. When I started caring more about what the Montgomerys thought, what our neighbors thought, what anyone thought, instead of just loving you, both of you, unconditionally. You told me you loved me when I came out, I said quietly. You said nothing would change. I meant it when I said it, Mom replied. But I didn't understand what it would actually mean, the questions from friends, the awkward conversations at church, the way some people looked at our family differently, and, instead of being proud of you for living authentically, I started to resent the discomfort. I started to see you as the problem instead of their prejudice as the problem. That really hurt, Mom. I know. She reached over and took my hand. Sophia, I am so sorry. For the plane ticket. For asking you to hide who you are. For prioritizing Lauren's wedding over your dignity. For all of it. I wanted to pull my hand away, to protect myself from hoping too much, but I didn't. Does Dad feel the same way? I asked. Mom hesitated. Your father, he's struggling. He loves you, but he's still convinced that we need to present a united front with Derek's family. That creating bridges is more important than standing on principle. He thinks I'm being too emotional about this. Are you here to convince me not to come tomorrow? No, Mom said firmly. I'm here to tell you that I was wrong. Completely, horribly wrong. And I'm here to ask if there's any way you can forgive me. I looked down, at our joined hands. I don't know, Mom. You didn't just hurt me. You asked me to erase myself. You made me feel like loving who I love was something shameful, something that needed to be hidden. I know. And you let that pastor into our house. Someone who wanted to fix me. That was... Mom's voice broke. That was one of the worst mistakes I've ever made. I should have thrown her out the moment she started talking about conversion therapy. But you didn't. No, I didn't. Mom wiped her eyes. I failed you, Sophia. As a mother, I failed you. And I understand if you can't forgive me right now. Maybe not ever. But I need you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. And I'm ashamed. We sat there as the first drops of rain began to fall. Are you coming to the wedding tomorrow? I asked. I want to, Mom said. More than anything. But your father, he said if I go, he won't. He said I'm betraying our values, choosing political correctness over our marriage. So you're going to choose him over me. Again. No. Mom squeezed my hand. I'm choosing you. Both my daughters. I'm going to that wedding, Sophia. And if your father decides not to come, then he'll have to live with missing one of the most important days of Lauren's life. I stared at her. You're serious. I've never been more serious about anything. She pulled something from her purse, a small jewelry box. This was my mother's, your grandmother's. She left it to me before she died, and told me to give it to my daughter on her wedding day. She opened the box. Inside was a delicate pearl bracelet. I was going to give this to Lauren tomorrow. But I realize now that it belongs to both of you. You and Lauren, my daughters. Both equally precious to me, both equally deserving of love and celebration. Mom's hands trembled as she held the box. I want you to give this to Lauren tomorrow. When you walk her down the aisle. She told you about that? She called me this morning, said you'd agreed to give her away, and that if I wanted to be part of her day, I'd need to accept that. Mom smiled through her tears. She's grown into such a strong woman. You both have. Despite my failings. The rain was falling harder now, but neither of us moved. I can't promise I'll be perfect, Mom said. I can't promise I'll always say the right thing or understand everything. This is new for me, and I'm going to make mistakes. But I promise I'll try. I promise I'll choose love over fear from now on. What about the Montgomerys? What about what people will say? Let them say whatever they want. Mom's voice was stronger now. I'm done sacrificing my children for other people's comfort. I should have learned that lesson 27 years ago, when I held you for the first time and promised to always protect you. I broke that promise last week. I won't break it again. I didn't realize I was crying until Mom pulled me into a hug. I'm so sorry, baby, she whispered. I'm so sorry. We held each other in the rain, and something that had been broken between us started just barely to mend. When we finally pulled apart, Mom took off her jacket and held it over both our heads as we walked toward the parking lot. I need to go home and talk to your father, she said. I need to tell him that I'm going to the wedding with or without him, and that he needs to decide what kind of man he wants to be, the kind who shows up for his daughters, or the kind who lets pride and fear make his decisions. Do you think he'll come? I don't know, Mom admitted. But I hope so, because I'd hate for him to miss seeing his daughter get married. Both his daughters, standing together. She kissed my forehead, something she hadn't done in years. I'll see you tomorrow, Sophia. At the wedding. Yeah, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Tomorrow. I watched her drive away, then sat in my car for a long time, processing everything that had just happened. My phone buzzed. A text. From Lauren. How did it go? I typed back. Mom's coming to the wedding. And she gave me Grandma's bracelet to give to you. 3 dots appeared. Then, I knew she'd come through. Meet me at my apartment? I have something for you too. An hour later, I was standing in Lauren's living room while she pulled a garment bag from her closet. I had this made for you, she said, unzipping it. Inside was a dress deep emerald green, elegant and simple. For walking me down the aisle, she explained. I wanted you to have something special. Something that shows everyone exactly who you are. My sister, my family, someone I'm proud to have beside me. I hugged her tightly. Tomorrow's going to be perfect. Tomorrow's going to be chaos, she corrected with a laugh. Half our guest list canceled. Derek's entire family isn't coming. Mom and Dad might be getting divorced, and we've been trending on local social media for 3 days. So? Perfect, I said. Exactly, she grinned. Perfectly, us. That night, I lay in bed at Aunt Melissa's house, the emerald dress hanging on the closet door, and thought about everything that had led to this moment. In less than 24 hours, Lauren would get married, and I would be right there beside her, exactly where I belonged. No matter what tomorrow brought, we'd face it together. As a family. Saturday morning began at 6 a.m. with Lauren calling me in a panic. The florist just called, she said, her voice tight. Half of our flower order was canceled. Constance called them yesterday and told them we weren't paying, which is technically true since the Montgomerys were covering flowers, and now they're refusing to deliver. I sat up in bed, instantly awake. What? Can they do that? Apparently yes, if the person who placed the order cancels it. Lauren sounded close to tears. Sophia, I'm getting married in 7 hours, and I don't have centerpieces, bouquets, or boutonnieres. Okay, don't panic, I said, already pulling on. Clothes. Let me make some calls. I'll fix this. By 7 a.m., I had contacted every florist within 30 miles. Most were booked solid for Saturday weddings. But at 7:43, I reached a small shop in the next town over called Bloom and Grow. The owner, a woman named Janet, listened to my frantic explanation. I saw the news coverage, she said, about the Montgomery situation. That poor girl. That's my sister, I said. And her wedding is at 2 o'clock. And I know this is last minute, but give me the venue address, Janet interrupted. I'll have something there by noon. No charge. What? No, I can't let you. My daughter came out to me 5 years ago, Janet said quietly. I handled it badly at first. Took me almost a year to pull my head out of my... Well, let's just say I understand what your sister is doing for you. Consider it my contribution to love winning. I almost cried right there. Thank you. Thank you so much. Just send me photos, Janet said. I want to see how, it turns out. By 9 a.m., I was at Lauren's apartment helping her get ready. Her bridesmaids, her college roommate Emma, and her work friend Jasmine were already there, along with a makeup artist and hairstylist. Crisis averted, I told Lauren, explaining about Janet's flower shop. She's even throwing in a few extra arrangements as a gift. Lauren hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe. Have I told you lately that you're the best sister ever? Once or twice this week, I said with a smile. The morning passed in a blur of hair curlers, makeup brushes, and champagne. The photographer arrived at 10 and started capturing everything, Lauren laughing with her bridesmaids, all of us helping her into her dress. The quiet moment when I fastened Grandma's pearl bracelet around her wrist. "Something borrowed?" I said softly. "From the two strongest women I know," Lauren replied, touching the pearls gently. "Grandma and Mom." At 11:30, my phone rang. "Dad." I stepped out onto the apartment balcony to answer. "Hello? Sophia." His voice was rough, like he hadn't slept. "Is your mother there?" "No, she's at the venue. She went early to make sure everything was set up." Silence. Then, "She really meant it. About going without me." "She did." More silence. I could hear him breathing on the other end. "Your mother hasn't spoken to me since yesterday afternoon," he said finally. "She packed a bag. Said she was staying at Melissa's house until I figured out what kind of man I want to be." Those were her exact words. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. "I've been driving around all morning," Dad continued, "just thinking. About you girls. About the choices I've made this week. About what kind of example I've set. Dad, I'm ashamed, Sophia," his voice cracked, "of myself. Of the fact that I was more worried about what the Montgomerys thought than about whether my daughters felt loved. Your mother was right. Father Thomas was right. And you were right. I gripped the balcony railing. "Are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm sorry. I'm saying I should have stood up for you from the beginning. I'm saying that I'm proud of you for being brave enough to be yourself, even when your own parents made that harder than it needed to be." He paused. "And I'm saying, is there still room for me at that wedding? Because I'd really like to walk my daughter down the aisle if she'll still have me." Tears blurred my vision. "Dad," Lauren asked me to walk her down the aisle. "I know. Your mother told me." He cleared his throat. "And that's as it should be. You earned that honor. But maybe I could sit with your mother, in the front row, just be there, as her father, supporting her. I think she'd love that," I managed to say. "Thank you, sweetheart. I'll see you at the venue." When I went back inside, Lauren took one look at my face and said, "Dad's coming, isn't he?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. She squeezed my hand. "Good. Everyone deserves a chance to get it right." By 1 p.m., we arrived at the waterfront venue. It was a gorgeous property, a restored barn overlooking the river, with gardens and a stone patio for the ceremony. White chairs were arranged in rows facing an arch that Janet had transformed into something magical with cascading white roses and greenery. Mom was there, directing the caterers, and when she saw us arrive, her whole face lit up. She hugged Lauren, then me, then whispered, "Your father called." "He's coming." "I know," I said. "I'm so glad," she said, her eyes glistening. "I didn't want him to miss this." But I meant what I said. I was coming with or without him. Guests began arriving at 1:30. There were fewer than we'd originally planned, 63 instead of 200, but every single person who walked through those doors had chosen to be there. Chosen love over judgment. I saw Aunt Melissa arrive with her husband, Derek's best friend Cameron and his wife, Lauren's co-workers, friends from college, the handful of Derek's relatives who had defied Constance's orders and come anyway, his Aunt Rachel and her family, his cousin Marcus, not to be confused with anyone else. A few others who had privately texted Derek their support. And sitting in the front row on Lauren's side, Mom and Dad, together, holding hands. At 1:50, Derek arrived with his groomsmen, looking nervous and excited. He caught my eye and mouthed, "Is she here?" I nodded, and he grinned. At 1:55, the string quartet began playing. The ceremony was about to start. Lauren and I stood in the barn's bridal suite, looking at each other. "You ready?" I asked. She took a deep breath. "I've never been more ready for anything in my life." "Good, because this dress cost too much for you to back out now," I joked. She laughed, then grabbed my hand. "Sophia, before we go out there, I need to tell you something. Lauren, we're about to walk. I need to say it now." She looked at me seriously. "This week has been horrible in a lot of ways, but it also showed me what really matters. Not a fancy wedding, not impressing the right people, not fitting into someone else's idea of what a family should look like. What matters is standing by the people you love, and you taught me that. I didn't, Yes, you did. By being yourself, even when it was hard, even when I made it harder. You showed me what courage looks like. She squeezed my hand. I'm proud to be your sister. And I'm proud that you're the one walking me down that aisle. I pulled her into a careful hug, mindful of her dress and makeup. I love you, Lauren. I love you too. The wedding coordinator knocked on the door. Ladies, it's time. I straightened Lauren's veil, grabbed her bouquet from the table, and linked my arm through hers. We walked to the barn doors, where we could see the ceremony space beyond the white chairs filled with people who loved us, the arch draped in flowers, Derek standing at the altar looking like he might cry from happiness. Last chance to run, I whispered. Not a chance, Lauren whispered back. Let's do this. The music swelled, the doors opened. And together, we stepped forward into the sunlight. Every person in those chairs stood up. I saw Mom dabbing at her eyes, Dad beamed with pride, Aunt Melissa grinning, Derek's Aunt Rachel giving us a thumbs up. We walked slowly down the aisle, Lauren's hand tight on my arm. I could feel her trembling, slightly nerves and excitement mixed together. Halfway down the aisle, Derek's cousin Marcus started clapping. Then others joined in, quiet at first, then louder. By the time we reached the altar, everyone was applauding. Not just for Lauren and Derek, but for all of us. For choosing love, for standing together, for refusing to let fear win. Derek stepped forward, tears streaming down his face, and Lauren let go of my arm. Take care of her, I said, just loud enough for him to hear. Always, he promised. I kissed Lauren's cheek, then took my place at the front, next to Emma and Jasmine. The officiant, not Derek's uncle, but a kind woman named Reverend Andrea Chen, who Derek and Lauren had found at the last minute, smiled at the assembled guests. Dearly beloved, she began, we are gathered here today to witness something extraordinary. Not just the union of two people in love, but the triumph of that love over adversity. Lauren and Derek have taught us all something important this week, that family isn't just about blood or obligation, it's about choice. About standing by each other when it matters most. I glanced at my parents. They were holding hands, both crying quietly. Marriage, Reverend Chen continued, is an act of courage. It's promising to choose someone, every day, even when it's difficult. Lauren and Derek have already proven they know how to do that. The ceremony was beautiful. Simple vows that Derek and Lauren had written themselves, tears and laughter, Derek's voice shaking as he promised to always be Lauren's safe place. Lauren's steady tone as she promised to build a life based on love, not fear. When Reverend Chen said, "You may kiss the bride," and Derek pulled Lauren close, the entire venue erupted in cheers. They walked back down the aisle together, married, beaming. I followed with Cameron, and as we passed my parents' row, I saw something that made my heart swell. Dad had his arm around Mom's shoulders, and both of them were smiling at me. The reception began at 3, held under a tent overlooking the river. The first dance, the toasts, the cake cutting, everything perfect in its imperfection. But the moment I'll never forget came during dinner, when Lauren stood up and tapped her glass. I know we usually save speeches for later, she said, but I need to say something now. This wedding almost didn't happen. Not because Derek and I weren't sure about each other, but because we were tested. Our families were tested. Our values were tested. The room went quiet. But we learned something important, Lauren continued. We learned that love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice. A choice to accept people as they are. A choice to stand up for what's right, even when it costs you something. And my sister Sophia taught me that. She looked at me, her eyes shining. Soph, thank you for being brave enough to be yourself. Thank you for refusing to hide. And thank you for walking me into my future today. I couldn't have done this without you. Everyone turned to look at me, and I felt my face flush. To Sophia, Derek added, raising his glass. The best sister-in-law a guy could ask for. To Sophia, the room echoed. I stood up, overwhelmed, and Lauren pulled me into a hug. We did it, she whispered. We really did it. Yeah, I whispered back. We did. As the sun set over the river and the party continued into the evening, I stood at the edge of the tent and watched my family, my complicated, messy, imperfect family celebrate. Mom, and Dad were dancing, talking quietly. Aunt Melissa was laughing with the caterers. Derek's defiant relatives were bonding with Lauren's friends. And in the center of it all, Lauren and Derek were spinning on the dance floor, lost in each other, building the first moments of their life together. This wasn't the wedding anyone had originally planned. But it was so much better, because it was real, and it was ours. And love, messy, complicated, courageous love, had won. 3 months after the wedding, I was back in Portland, sitting in my apartment with a cup of coffee, when my phone rang. It was Constance Montgomery. I stared at the screen for a solid 10 seconds before answering. Hello? Sophia. Her voice was clipped, formal. I'm calling because Derek asked me to. He said if I wanted to be part of his life, part of their lives, I needed to have this conversation. I waited, not making this easy for her. I'm calling to apologize, she said, and the words sounded like they physically hurt her. For the things I said, the way I behaved, the damage I caused. Okay, I said neutrally. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect anything, really. But Derek made it clear that if I want to have a relationship with him and Lauren, and with any future grandchildren, I need to accept their family, all of their family. Including you. Grandchildren? I said, sitting up straighter. Is Lauren? No, not yet. But Derek mentioned they're trying. And she paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was different, softer. I don't want to miss that. I already missed their wedding. I missed seeing my son marry the woman he loves because I was too stubborn and too afraid to accept something I didn't understand. So you're apologizing because you want something, I said. Not because you actually think you were wrong. That's not. She stopped herself. Maybe that's partly true, but it's more complicated than that. I've had 3 months to watch my son build a life without me, to see the photos Aunt Rachel posts on Facebook, the dinner parties, the holidays, the happiness, and I'm not in any of them. I'm the ghost at the feast, the empty chair at the table. That was your choice. I know. She was quiet for a moment. Harold and I have been seeing a counselor. At Derek's insistence. And she asked me something that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. She asked what I was so afraid of. What I thought would happen if I accepted you. And what's the answer? I was afraid that if I accepted your lifestyle, she caught herself. If I accepted you, then I was betraying everything I believed in, my faith, my values, my community. I was afraid God would judge me for condoning sin. I'm not a sin to be condoned, Constance. I'm a person. I'm starting to understand that. She took a breath. The counselor asked me to read the Gospels again. Really read them. Not the verses that get quoted in sermons, but the whole story. Jesus eating with tax collectors and sinners. Jesus defended the woman caught in adultery. Jesus healing on the Sabbath even when it broke the rules. And I realized, I've spent more time judging people than loving them, more time protecting rules than protecting people. I didn't know what to say. I'm not asking you to forgive me, Constance continued. I'm not asking for us to be friends. I'm just asking. If Derek and Lauren have you over for Thanksgiving, can I be there too? Can we try to be civil? For their sake? Does Derek know you're calling me? Yes. He's the one who gave me your number, she hesitated. He also told me about the florist, Janet, about how a stranger showed you more kindness in one phone call than I showed you in weeks. That hit harder than you might think. I walked to my window, looking out at the Portland skyline. I'll think about it. But Constance, if we do this, if we try to coexist, you need to understand something. I'm not going to hide who I am. I'm not going to make myself smaller to make you comfortable. And if I ever bring someone I'm dating to a family event, you're going to treat them with respect. Understood, she said quietly. After we hung up, I called Lauren. Did your mother-in-law just call and semi-apologize to me? I asked. Lauren laughed. She did. Derek's been working on her. It's slow progress, but it's progress. How do you feel about it? Honestly? Confused. Part of me wants to tell her where she can shove her apology. But another part of me remembers watching Mom apologize in the park, and how much that meant. You don't have to forgive her, Lauren said. Not now, maybe not ever. But Derek really wants his mom back in his life. And if there's any chance you two can reach a truce, I'll try, I said. For you and Derek. But I'm not making any promises. That's all we're asking. That evening, Dad called. Your mother and I want to invite you to Sunday dinner next week, he said. If you're willing to drive down, we've invited Lauren and Derek too. Just family. Just family, I repeated, and the phrase that had once felt like a weapon now felt like an invitation. We've been going to a support group, Dad continued. PFLAG. Your Aunt Melissa suggested it. It's for parents of LGBTQ kids. And Sophia, hearing other parents' stories. It's opened my eyes to a lot of things. Like what? Like how many families fall apart because parents can't get past their own discomfort. Like how many kids end up alone because their parents chose religion over relationships. Like how many fathers never get to meet their daughters' partners or grandkids because they drew a line in the sand and refused to cross it. His voice wavered. I don't want to be that father, Sophia. I don't want my prejudices to cost me you. Dad. My throat tightened. I know I have a lot to learn. I know I'm going to say the wrong things sometimes, but I'm trying. We both are. And we want you in our lives, really in our lives. Not just tolerating you or accepting you with conditions. We want to know you, your job, your friends, your life in Portland, whoever you love. All of it. I'd like that, I said softly. The Sunday dinner was awkward at first. We all sat around the same table where I'd been handed a plane ticket and an ultimatum just months before. But this time was different. Mom asked about my work. Dad wanted to hear about Portland. Lauren and Derek shared stories about married life. And slowly, over roast chicken and mashed potatoes, we started to feel like a family again. Not the same family we'd been before. That family, the one built on avoidance and unspoken rules, was gone. This was something new. Something built on honesty and hard conversations and choosing each other every day, even when it was uncomfortable. I saw that Janet sent flowers to our new apartment, Lauren mentioned, with a card that said, "For the sisters who stand together." Did you tell her our address? She asked for it, I said. She wanted to send you a housewarming gift. She's become kind of a fairy godmother figure. Speaking of gifts, Mom said, standing up and retrieving a photo album from the bookshelf. I made this for you. She handed it to me. Inside were photos from the wedding, professional ones from the photographer, candid ones from guests' phones, even a few screenshots from the news coverage. But what made me cry were the captions Mom had written by hand under each photo. Under a picture of me and Lauren walking down the aisle, the moment my daughters taught me what courage looks like. Under a photo of all of us at the reception, family isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up. Under a candid shot of me laughing with Derek's Aunt Rachel. The people who choose love will always find family. Mom, I whispered. I wanted you to have these, she said. So you'd remember that even when things were hard, love won. And we found our way back to each other. 6 months after the wedding, I got another call. This time from Derek. We're having a small dinner party Friday night, he said. Just a close family. Can you come? Sure. What's the occasion? He paused, then said, You'll find out when you get here. But Sophia? Thank you. For what? For refusing to disappear. If you'd taken that plane ticket, if you'd backed down. I don't think Lauren and I would have learned who we really wanted to be. You gave us that gift. Friday night, I arrived at their townhouse to find both sets of parents there, mine and Derek's. Constance gave me a stiff nod, which was progress. Harold actually said hello. After dinner, Lauren and Derek stood up together, holding hands. We wanted you all here, Lauren said, because you're our family. And we have some news, Derek beamed. We're pregnant. The room erupted. Mom cried. Dad hugged Derek. Aunt Melissa, who'd also been invited, started planning a baby shower immediately. And Constance walked over to me. Your niece or nephew, she said carefully, will be lucky to have you as an aunt. It wasn't friendship. It wasn't even warm. But it was an acknowledgement. It was a start. Later that night, Lauren pulled me aside. Can you believe this? She said, her hand on her still flat stomach. Everything we went through, and now this? You're going to be an amazing mom, I told her. We're going to need a godmother, she said, looking at me meaningfully. Lauren, I mean it. This baby is going to grow up knowing that love comes in all forms. That family means standing by each other, that courage matters more than comfort, and who better to teach them that than you? I hugged her, both of us crying happy tears this time. As I drove back to Portland that night, I thought about everything that had happened. A wedding that almost destroyed a family had somehow rebuilt it stronger. Parents who had asked me to hide had learned to celebrate me. In-laws who had rejected us had started to soften. And a sister who had once wavered now stood rock solid beside me. None of it was perfect. Constance would probably never march in pride with me. My parents still had moments where they said the wrong thing. There were still relatives who'd sided with the Montgomerys and cut us off. But we had something more important than perfection. We had chosen each other, and in the end, that's what family really means. Not DNA or obligation or tradition, but choice. Every single day, choosing love over fear. Choosing presence over comfort. Choosing each other. And that, I've learned, is the only kind of family worth having. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.